So, call the meeting to order. Amy, can you have roll call?
Yes. Chair West,
Present?
Vice Chair Miller-Gervais,
Present.
Ed Contreras,
Present.
Diane Foster,
Here.
Cameron Fox,
Here.
Taylor Funroom,
Here.
Rich Miller,
Here.
Bob Silverforb,
Here.
and Lori Zwingli.
Here.
All right, very good.
All right. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes that were sent or were posted, I should say?
Yes.
Any changes or corrections?
They've already been given to Angie, and so it should be correct as written, and I move they be approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. I will sign it.
I know, so.
I appreciate that.
I don't remember that far back ever.
All right, so our tradition of board member announcements. Let's start with Rich.
Nothing.
Okay, Bob?
I have nothing, we of course have a new mayor that was elected, and I'm sure that Kim will touch on that in her talk.
Okay, Lori?
Nothing.
Ted?
Chief and several of his people were at the Knights of Columbus breakfast that we have first Sunday of the month. And it proved very, very worthwhile, at least to us.
Good.
Got a lot of good comments. Everybody was really pleased to see you guys around and have you chit chat with everybody. So
Good.
thank you very much.
Absolutely. That's fun.
Cool. You're going back, right?
Yes, first month or first Sunday, right?
Well, it'll be the second, because first Sunday is each.
Oh.
All right, thanks. Cameron? Karen?
Nothing.
Taylor?
I participated in the walkout that happened on Wednesday. I want to commend the police department and the school officials that were there that helped keep it under control. There was a group that was trying to disrupt it, but it didn't end up happening, and it was very peaceful, and we were able to honor the lives that were lost at Stoneman Douglas and bring awareness to some issues that we want to discuss. So that was cool.
And didn't mess up the finals either.
It did not. They put it on launch, so.
Cool. All right.
Nothing
And,
for me.
okay. I have a couple things. One, I'd like to hear about the accident that happened this morning.
Like, put me on the spot.
So I just, I heard the sirens and heard the reports, travel time this morning, and then just saw something on Facebook. And if there's something you can tell us about during your time, that would be cool.
Yes, I'll have to get some info.
Okay, all right. And then, given the discussion, the public discussion we've been having for a month now, and we've talked about this in the past, I think it would be good if either the board or the department does something just to remind people about home gun safety type stuff. I think that's a role that we can play in reminding people of that, and I think it's important. I know people always, since they know I'm an active with firearms, they always ask me how I keep them, and I share what I do, but I think we should have either something online or a pamphlet, and I think we should discuss it. So I've been thinking about that, and I know Amy, it's been an issue with you in the past too. So anybody else think of anything before we went around? Okay, so business. This is a tough time for saying goodbye to people. Amy's been here since the beginning, and it's been really, really cool to have Cameron and Taylor as high school students participate. I think there's a few other boards and commissions that have high school participants, but you guys have made an impact here in bringing a perspective that us old folks and parents don't always have.
What? Are you calling us all old?
No, but you're a parent.
Okay, that's true.
So, and then Ed, it's been a short time, but we really appreciate because you came with some experience to the board that none of us have with your law enforcement experience and stuff. And we appreciate the input. I'm personally sad to see the four of you move on. Two of you, I understand you got to go away to school and get on with your lives and stuff like that. So, would anybody else like to recognize or share anything about these four great people?
I'd like to go on record and just say thank you as well, Amy and both of you and the two young ladies. And we wish and hope for the very best for you in your future endeavors.
All right, well, can we give them all a little bit of applause? All right, cool. So out of what's been going on around the nation, and especially last month in Florida, Amy and I and the chief have been talking about bringing up this issue, and Captain Hanlon gets to talk about active shooter response.
Is it my turn?
It is your turn for this part.
So, this has changed, the law enforcement response has changed dramatically since probably the inclusion of Columbine, really. It's going to be ongoing and evolving as we move into the future. But I can tell you right now what we do in a generic fashion, because everything's going to be unique. We don't know exactly what the call is going to be. We know historically that the information we receive is at best probably 75% accurate. And so we take that into consideration when we are responding to these things. But guaranteed, all our officers that are on duty will respond to an incident in a school. I mean, that's obviously the biggest priority. Our number one goal is obviously to identify the threat, find the threat, and stop the threat, whatever that may be. Singular, multiple people, whatever that is. And then secondly, we will administer care to anybody that may be injured. And then that's followed up with the TDF&R and the medic units that would come in behind law enforcement. And then thirdly is the reunification, which we work with the school district on. And we have identified locations within the city, and it would all be dependent and subject to what's going on that day and probably where the best location is, depending on what is transitioning or what is happening on site. Those are probably some of the things that we won't disclose until that day. And because one of our biggest fears, and it just played out in Florida, was the fire alarm and secondary locations where people can set us up. There's been a discussion for quite some time that the fire alarm would be a setup, and it was a matter of time before that happened, and it did happen. So when this happens, I don't know if you guys know how our radio system works, but South County, or South Cities, I should say, that includes Sherwood, Tualatin, King City, and Tigard. So we all work off the same net. So when a call comes out, every one of the units that is working hears it. And I can assure you that they will come along with Newburgh, Washington County, and everybody. So that would be really the biggest challenge, is trying to control that and that element of law enforcement response, because we've seen historically a lot of self-dispatching. We saw at Reynolds High School here a few years ago, we had units south of Salem responding to those kind of things. And so it makes it challenging and difficult for local law enforcement. But we have worked and continue to work with the school district on, number one, lock in and lock down. I think everybody's been involved in those quite a bit. We just recently had some, and we're involved in that to evaluate how, number one, the school's doing and staff's doing, to just identify anything that we can to help ensure the safety of the students. We've done training in the high school. We've walked through all of the schools in the district to familiarize ourselves with them as best we can. And then the other thing is for Sherwood, all our officers have key access to the school. So we have the ability to get in if necessary. That is not the traditional vestibule or front door that has been designated to get in. So that helps on a response for us. And it really stays open-ended as far as specifics as to what we're going to do, other than, as I told you before, it's first one there is first one in. There used to be a mindset that we would develop a cell team and not go in until there was 3 or 4 so that we could go in and address this as a group. But we just know from history that these things are over so quickly that we really don't have the time to do that. So it could be, ironically enough, a Washington County deputy driving by, a Clackamas County deputy, because we have so much law enforcement that lives in Sherwood that it could be somebody that you're not expecting to be there on scene and be involved in this. And so universally, I can tell you that that is how Washington County trains. I'm pretty confident in Clackamas County that is their mindset as well. I mean, really as a state, I think we're all on the same, on board as far as who's going and how we're going to get in there. And obviously radio and all those other things we'll deal with at the time, but again, our first and foremost is to get in and address the threat. And then attending care, or care is going to be secondary, and then the reunification for the third component of this. So that's pretty much the generic response. We don't have a big policy that's specific, you're going to do A, B, or C, but yes.
So one of the concerns that I have is in the chaos of everything, and you said it happens so fast. So if, let's say, an off-duty Clackamas deputy sheriff is the first one on the scene, is there a protocol set in place between interagencies that they know how to communicate and what frequency to talk on, so that you know that somebody's already in there taking care of this threat? Or is that also a potential issue?
It is a potential for the chaos. I don't know. We saw it a year ago Christmas. OSP's working off their frequency, trying to get on our frequency to give. I mean, literally, he's working off of 2 different radios, trying to give updates and trying to tell us what's going on so that we can find him. There is absolutely that potential. We can all toggle over to each other's frequencies, but if you've ever seen our radios and the adrenaline dump, and you're trying to dial in and trying to get in there, to your point, it could be a problem. Hopefully they're going to be able to get on there, and hopefully that information is going to be relayed not only through dispatch, but on the air by the officer. The other threat and the other potential is we have an officers coming in from other ends of the building that we're not aware of, because it will be utter chaos. And so it could be challenging, yeah.
But you guys go out to the firing range and train to do active shooter drills, though, don't you?
No, not to that level. Our training would be, for example, we will have simunition guns, which will fire little paintballs. And so we'll have protection on, and we'll try and get as close as we can to what we believe is going to be real, but we don't have hundreds, if not thousands, of students in chaos and trying to get through them and trying to identify these things. We'll get as many as we can. And really we focus on just, okay, how are we getting into the school and how are we identifying where the potential threat is? Just those, audible senses, vision, whatever it is that's telling us where we need to go. But as far as, bringing that to real life out on a live firing range, we just can't train like that just because it's too dynamic.
I gathering that you guys don't have a tactical frequency?
We do. So the way dispatch works is, as everybody, so if the event occurs here, we would all stay on our primary channel. Our primary channel is the ones that include 12th and Tigard and Sherwood us. So King City. And so anybody coming in to our event would have to toggle to our channel. And so it's just them getting there. We have learned, and hopefully this will not be an issue, but I don't know if you remember the incident in Tualatin 7, 8, 9 years ago, maybe, when the man went into his business and shot up his wife and all those people. Well, there was so much of a response from law enforcement that it overloaded our radio system. As a matter of fact, it failed on us, and thankfully we had a backup that goes to Clackamas County. That's the benefit of the metro areas. We have some backups in place. We learned in that event that if you even toggled over and were listening to the event, it was taking up bandwidth. And so we hope everybody will toggle over, but like when we go down to Portland, I don't know it well enough. I have to actually literally switch over to the C group and then go to a different channel, and then I need to make sure that I'm on the right channel. It can be pretty confusing for anybody coming in, I guess, to your point. So not everybody just goes to one channel and coordinates there. Our tactical negotiation teams, our SWAT team, would, if in fact it was a long drawn out scenario where we had a hostage situation or something where they had time to respond, yeah, then they would work off the primary channel designated for them, but just for immediate responders, no.
So I know you guys do training with the school district, and that seems to be the focus right now, especially because of the events that happened recently. But what about other big gathering spaces like theaters or Target? All of us parents like to go to Target a lot. And just all the other buildings around town that draw a big crowd, or even parades and community events.
Have we trained specific for those?
Yeah, like what is the training? How is it different, or is it different?
No, it's not going to be different. That's, boy, open space events are going to be completely different. I mean, because nobody's going to be confined, and everybody's going to be going everywhere. It's really going to be, again, we are going to, our priority is going to be the same regardless of what it is. We'll go in, and we're going to determine who and where that threat is and deal with that, and then we're going to have to come back secondarily taking the casualties we have. Obviously, in those events, we won't have necessarily reunification that we can take off the table, but it's the same concept. We're going to get there. We're going to go first person there, first 2 people there. They're going to go and look for whoever is causing the issue and deal with it. We have not worked with any specific retailers that you mentioned, but it's not necessarily a bad idea. But we're going to get in there. We're just going to go to wherever people are pointing or we're hearing things. So, one thing I can tell you is, and it's kudos to the school district, because we had trouble communicating with our radios inside some of the schools. We couldn't get out. We couldn't get out on cell phones either. And that was a big concern for staff members or anybody that's inside the school that's trying to relay information to us. So they've gone in and done a fantastic job of putting towers up, for lack of a better term. I don't know what they did, but we've been back in the schools, and like in some of the schools that we couldn't get out, and we can be anywhere, which is great. I mean, this communication is going to be big for everybody in that and an event like that.
So the one question I have is, when you have a all hands on deck type of an incident, who is the incident commander? Is it the first person on scene till somebody comes hired? Does Washington County bump the PD? What's the protocol?
Yes, it's going to be first person on scene as incident command and it's a hierarchy of rank until somebody gets there that is of higher rank and says they're taking over. Washington County doesn't come in and supersede us. It would be our event, but it would become a mutual aid. I mean, you're going to be standing up probably ICS, and a lot of those components will come into play. And you will have a command post, and we would have several different command posts and all sorts of things that would unfortunately have to be stood up. But in the event of that, then depending on what was utilized in that, if SWAT team or our TNT comes in, then yeah, the sheriff's office becomes probably that joint unified command. But the point, because I work day shift, if I went to an event where there's something going on at school, I would probably take over as incident command, depending on how late I was responding to that thing. I may be the first one in. That's the reality of it. That's why I train with, and that's why everybody in our agency trains, so that we can respond as necessary. I could be inside the school, and that incident command could be from either just a road guy or a sergeant until somebody else was able to step outside, because that's the tricky part. This thing becomes huge and lots of things to take into consideration.
Okay. I have one more question.
So, when we talk like this, we're talking theoretically, we're talking about what ifs. And when we go to the shooting range, like when I go, I shoot at targets. I've never, ever aimed my gun at a human being. And I know that when you train, especially when you're doing training out on the range, they have the silhouettes of people, et cetera, et cetera. And then after an event, like what happened on Christmas Day, you have this, you had to take down this bad guy, shot and killed a guy. So you do post-traumatic stress counseling. Do you, as a force, police force, do you guys, in your training, is there counseling or some sort of dialogue about actually having to shoot a human being in an active shooter situation? I mean, it's one thing when you're just caught off guard and you have, I mean, literally, you're pulling somebody over and that guy's being belligerent, I get all that, but in something like that, where you go in an active shooter and you're gonna have to take somebody down, do you guys talk about that beforehand, before you ever even get to an event like that, or is that sort of an unspoken thing?
No, I think if I hear you correctly, are we, I guess maybe the best way we address it is we add an element of stress and we'll act with better term fear in an event. We'll try and get people, I shouldn't say stress, but just we're going to elevate their levels of stress and their adrenaline, and we're going to get them into a position where they have to make split-second decisions. Some of our training involves being able to come through a door and identify a good guy and a bad guy, and then quickly having to make a decision if you're going to shoot and if not. And then there are follow-up discussions as to why you did what you did. And so I guess at that point, we will talk through the decision-making process of why you did this, why you either didn't shoot or why you did shoot. Because if you can only imagine how quickly those kind of decisions have to be made, we understand that and we recognize that, and we can never recreate a scenario of real life, but we can try and get close in the fact that we'll put you in some high-stress situations and make you feel like you were making those split-second decisions, and if you can't, I mean, we just don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot of medical history and books out there, I should say, about the psychology of warfare, number one, and just the mindset of people in making those kind of decisions. I mean, I guess you're never going to know unless you're there at the end of the day. We're going to try and get people prepared in case they are in that situation, but it's going to be an individual thing.
So I guess that's what I was wanting to hear. You do the actual tactical training where they have to make those choices, but then you debrief by talking about the process and your emotional and mental processing. And I think what I'm saying is I think that's kind of important, because if you think about like what happened on Christmas Day, the radio reported that this guy just shot and killed his wife. So there was an instantaneous, in my mind it would be anyway, I'm the good guy, I gotta go take this guy down if I find him. And so there's already a mental, you've already ascended, you've already agreed in your mind that you're gonna do what it has to take. You have time to think about it, in a sense. Whereas this active shooter, they don't know where the guy is, and he's a kid. Now he was a 19-year-old, but he was a kid. He looked like he was 15. And just that whole process of having to go into a situation like that, and I'm gonna have to pull a trigger on this young kid. And it's good to hear that you guys talk about that stuff.
Yeah, it's in everything we do. I mean, we want to just prepare as best we can for an event, either like Christmas or a traffic stop or a domestic violence situation, we think about, we don't want to be over paranoid, but we want to be prepared. We want to be able to think about our options. Because if if option 1 doesn't work, we better have 2, 3, and 4 in our mind already there and ready to go versus having to stop and think about these things. So it's ongoing, and I agree with you, it's critical, it's important for making sure that our officers are prepared for that kind of circumstance or that kind of event if necessary.
All right, anything else?
Yeah, can I put Kim and Taylor maybe on the spot? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I'm wondering, and I know, again, this is, active shooters are broader than just a school setting, but I'm wondering how you guys feel at school, if you feel that you could navigate a situation. I know that every situation is different. You don't know what, of course, you'd be getting into or where you'd be, but do you feel confident that you were prepared enough that if a situation like that were to happen, that you could navigate it appropriately?
I know definitely with that lockout that happened, it was unclear on the radio if it was a lockout or a lockdown, but we reacted as if it was a lockdown. I was in the engineering room, so it was, because I was engineering apprentice, I was kind of the second adult in the room, so funneling the kids into the wood shop, closing the door and everything, and that was pretty, we stayed really calm despite we didn't even know what the situation was. And it was a lockout, but if it was a lockdown, we would have been just fine.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of kids don't really take it seriously, and in the past, there's been talking, and kids will be on their phones and stuff. But I think since recent events, kids have started to take it more seriously, and like Taylor said, it was supposed to be a lock-in, but a lot of teachers thought it was a lockdown. But I wasn't there, but I definitely heard that it was taken more seriously, and I think different measures that were taken have definitely helped. They have started locking every single door in the school except the entrance, which, yes, there's going to be complaints about inconvenience, but if kids are going to complain about wanting to feel safer, then there's going to have to be measures taken. So I think, yeah, just feeling an effort from the school has definitely helped, and it should make kids feel safer because I don't really know what else they could do.
And then in talking with your friends and colleagues, either at school or in other districts or whatnot, is there anything that you guys can think of that we can do as a community to help navigate this situation, or any situation out in the community that will be an active shooter? Or how can we come together to support you guys? Well, and really all of us too. I mean, I go into the theater and I look for, the first thing I do is look for the exits, which I used to never do that, but now it's something I do. It's a sad state of affairs, but. Because I'm sure you guys are talking about this, and so,
Yeah.
again, not to put you on the spot, you don't have to answer, but I'm just curious.
There's a series, multiple layers of discussions that are going on right now of big ideas and small ideas. And I know, not to bring it back out to the walkout, I know that's a controversial thing, but a lot of people spoke that they didn't take us seriously and the issues that we were trying to represent, which is sad because most of us were seniors out there that were going to be or are already voters, and talking about situations and have been through 4 years of lockdown, lockout procedures and taking it seriously. So just listening, I guess, just being able to talk on a level platform and not, despite our age, despite our experiences, being able to talk about safety and what we could do, even with the smallest things, and try and address the big things without arguing with each other at an instant.
I definitely think being conscious of social media is going to become a big thing, because I know there were definitely warning signs before that school shooting that should have been taken more seriously. And I think even just as students, we should be more consciously aware of different things that our classmates are posting or even talking about, or different ways they may be acting out. And I think we have that responsibility to contact an adult, or even if you feel like you should talk to a police officer or just a trusted adult. And even, I know parents can talk with their kids, you can always talk to me if anything concerns you, or even adults have social media too, so just keeping an eye out. I think that will play a big role in it too, because that's the only way you can really see the people's personal lives and like how they might react.
You brought up social media, we had that Unity Week. I'm sure you saw the global story that people were saying horrible, horrible things to each other on a public story. They finally got taken down, but it was about unifying people, and there was like trying to plan a protest then, and hateful things said about LGBT communities and different races, and the exploitation of the Confederate flag. It got horrible, and so I definitely think social media will be monitored soon, because that was really bad. There's three different stories going on at the same time, and they all just got more vile and vile as it went on.
Story, okay, so this one adult was not.
Snapchat. Snapchat. Yes, yeah. Snapchat has global stories that
Yeah.
you can geo-snap, and it was assigned to the schools, and there was 3 going on at the same time, so anyone can put snaps on there, as long as the admin of it approves it, and this admin decided to approve almost everything that went on there. So it was
So yeah,
pretty horrible.
it's just in a location, so if anyone is on the Sherwood High School premise, they can like add it to the school public story, and then if anyone else is there, it pops up on theirs because they're in that premise. And yeah, it's definitely not always used in a positive way. Yeah, I mean social media in general, but yeah, monitoring it, I think. Or even, I don't even know if the government can step in and do this, but if, I don't know, if someone like makes a threat or says like, I want to shoot someone, like,
That's,
you know, like, I'm not saying like send them to jail, but like make a penalty, you know, like, so they know that that's not okay, because so many kids get away with so many different things and there's nothing being done about it. Yeah.
well, we had an incident here 3+ years ago at the high school
Mhm.
with a young man who wrote something in his journal and had a list of names, right?
Mhm.
And so that, you had parents and other responsible officials that turned it over to the PD in the high school, and it was dealt with. Whether we as individuals think that how the backside was administered, the good news is that the threat was dealt with. And my son was on the list. So, and I felt very, very pleased with how I was notified and how I was involved in that process. But that, you know, I think a couple things I'll just add, and I appreciate you two guys' perspectives, Matt, Amy, for asking. I think that as a society, the biggest challenge we have is personal responsibility. Not only for ourselves, but those close to us. And then I think one of the biggest challenges that we have in dealing with these incidences that have happened recently, because mental health is involved with so much, is the HIPAA limitations and how we balance privacy and public protection is something that we got to deal with. And I don't have any clue how that's going to happen, but those are a big challenge that needs to be dealt with. But I think the first line of defense is personal responsibility.
If I could just chime in, and to your point, I think that one of the biggest challenges, and it's a distraction for law enforcement, is we're chasing bad news, because social media gets out there so far ahead of us, and there are all these stories going out there, and all of a sudden our focus is on putting out little fires that had nothing to do with the event, but somebody thought they heard something, said something, and it's been spun 20 times, and now everybody's calling us asking about something that has absolutely nothing to do with the event. And we can't tell them any information, to your point about HIPAA, and it frustrates people, I get that, but it's like, there's a couple incidents that I think maybe you were referring to where information got way ahead of us that had nothing really to do with the school and the event, and it was difficult, it was challenging for us. And so it could be a monster into the event just out here, just north of us. We had a helicopter above us, the entire event. And, trying to deal with that while you're dealing with the subject and you're dealing with social media. So, I mean, it can be a great tool. I love it because I do get glean a lot of information. So there's a lot of good intel out there. So I'm not totally digging it, but when these things come up, I mean, honestly, I'll hear about events on social media before I've been called because our officers are actively trying to work the event or work the issue, and they don't have time to get a hold of me or get a hold of another supervisor because they're dealing with it, but a neighbor's taking a photo of something because there's police cars parked out in front of their car. All of a sudden, there's speculation and finger pointing.
It's on the community page.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, all the time.
So it's, and I have no idea, and then all of a sudden I'm getting phone calls, and I have no clue. So it can be challenging, but
Okay, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say about the active shooter and dealing with schools, because I think that's part of why the conversation is taking place, is I believe the current high school had in its plans the summer before the new high school to add the festival. Festival. And I think they're moving that up to this summer so that the high school will have that. And I guess that's just, can you explain what that is and why it would serve a purpose?
it's just like this right
Yeah,
here.
like a little
It's just two. I
entry.
mean, I'm not sure how they've had it set up, but it just allows.
A double entry.
Yeah, kind of a quarantine area where they can enter one area, but they're going to have limited access to another. And
It's kind of like at Laura Ridge and Edie where you go, first you go into it.
And I think
Can I answer
Middleton
because
has
Rob
it.
Sagliano gave me this exact answer.
What's that?
Rob Sagliano gave me this exact answer. Can I explain how the?
Oh, absolutely.
So he said that like there's the door, like if you think of a box, so you have the building and then you have a box outside the building. It's climate control for comfort for kids. But the first door that like you come in is the only one unlocked. And then there's another locked door, and then the third door is the locked door to the school. And it goes straight to the office or another confined, I haven't been in Archer Glen to know, but like another confined area. So the idea is that someone has to get through all three doors and that, office staff to get into the school, and then all the other doors are either locked automatically or can be locked immediately because you say so, something like that. So there's like a funnel.
I believe Middleton's like that, if I remember right. You go in
All the
and then you have
elementaries are
you have
as
to
of this
turn
summer.
into the admin.
As of summer 2017.
Yeah, because Middleton, they built that divider wall. that
Yeah.
They used to just kind of rope it off.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like you were supposed to go through, but now there's the
Yeah.
actual division, which is good.
Yeah, when I went there, there wasn't that wall. And then
So I guess the point of that is I think our school district is considering and not here to represent them, I'm just here to pass along information about they're being proactive and we see the need to not wait till 2020 to have
That was
that
stuff.
extra step, but may or may not help, but it may.
The school bond that passed had it more than just the high school, it had all that other stuff. Anything else?
Yeah, one last question for Taylor and Cam, sorry to keep putting you on the spot. Well, it's your last meeting, so why not? And you're going to college, so, I know how all the rest of us feel about the SRO presence in the school. And I'm curious to get your opinion on whether or not you think you have enough SRO time, whether or not you'd like to see more, it's fine, you don't want the SRO around, whether you want more SPD presence.
Is that the
Yeah,
office?
right.
Okay, just
Mhm.
trying to refer to that.
Or
You're
what your friends in college are around.
It's a very friendly presence around the school. I think, I don't know myself because I'm not in the halls that often in between classes, and I see him at lunch, definitely. But I think it's good and I think it's enough because I see more other officers come in too. I've been seeing a lot more officer presence at school, and with the new, it wasn't a new door policy, but the more enforced door policy, and there's just been hand in hand with the SRO, more officers and more admin patrolling the halls. That if you do not have a hall pass that's assigned to your sector of the school, you will get actual attention. Like, so definitely halls have been safer, but the environment isn't like hostile and paranoid. It's pretty mild. It's pretty calm.
Yeah, I think just having him there definitely provides like a feeling of security. Like I feel safe, especially as you just walk by and there's a police officer in your school and you just have that feeling like if anything happens that he's gonna be the first. Like it's just such a difference having someone already there than having to respond. Just that response time, even as close as it is, so much can happen. Yeah, so it's nice having like a safe feeling.
Anything else on this discussion? It was really, really informative. Thanks, Captain. and-
Hope I answered your questions.
Yes, no, that's great. Counselor Young, you're up.
All right, well, we had an election, if anybody didn't know, because not very many people turned out to vote. But it's really about 30%. So, you know, it's a special election, it's always low, but there's only 3,200 voters. But it was really close between Keith and Sean and like 200 votes. And so I think we're going to be lucky if we have both of them on council. And I think it's going to be a good thing going forward. This next Tuesday is a meeting, and we have a work session at 6. And that's going to be all about the UGB expansion and when we're not passed Metro for it. So we put a letter of interest in December. And by May, we have to solidify that if we really want to ask for those 600 acres or we want to. So the work sessions discuss, do we still want that entire 600 acres? Do we want to say nothing? Do we want to tear that down a little lower? So I think it's been very robust conversations. There's a lot of opinions going on. One of our counselors did a poll. That was very interesting. So that's going to be good. On April 3rd, we'll have the new mayor sworn in and the 2 counselors that will be re-sworn in because they're currently sitting as appointments. So they'll be sworn in as elected. And that meeting, we also have a work session, speaking of SROs. We're going to get an SRO, which is School Resource Officer, program update from Officer Bertrand. And I'm sure Chief will be there and just kind of let us know how the program's going, how involved in the school is, and I'm sure there'll be more conversation about the need for more possibly. And I know later in the summer we plan to have some conversations about how to fund such things.
You said April 3rd.
April 3rd, yeah. I know there's some people think when the new high school's built and then we have this gigantic middle school, the need for 2 at least, so there's going to be some conversations happening and how we can make that work, if we can make that work. The city's budget is always very tight, but I think it's important to talk about. And that's it.
Okay. All right. Captain Hanlon, you're back up with staff report.
Internal promotion process. So last week, right? Week before last, we promoted Sergeant John Carlson to the vacant captain position. For you that don't know who he is, he's been here 20 plus years, sergeant for I believe about 16. So he comes with a lot of experience and history just because he's been here. His kids have grown up here and gone to school, and so he'll be a great addition to that component of the staff. And we just opened up for an internal sergeant position as of Monday to fill his spot. So
So are you guys do the same internal
Yeah,
or
we'll
not
stay in.
outside?
Correct, we'll stay internal for that. And we also are mid-stride of hiring new recruits or laterals. We open it up to both. So we are in next month we'll run some of the testing, the ORPAT and the post-test, the written test. And then the physical agility test will be held the first part of April, followed by interviews and
So
such.
1 or 2 positions?
2 at this point, because Captain Daniel, we're filling his spot, and then Bethany Wittig had resigned here about a month ago, so we need to fill her spot as well.
Okay.
And
When's John coming back from spring training?
That's convenient, I get promoted and go on vacation. He should be back first of next week to assume his roles, which will be great because he'll be my counterpart. What that means is, at our level, somebody oversees patrol and then the other oversees the support division, which is SRO and detective and evidence and administrative parts. So I'm going to be going back. I was currently over patrol, so I'll be going back to the support side, and he'll take the patrol division. And then I think I was supposed to give out some info on the community traffic safety class that's coming up as well. I think there are flyers back there.
There are, yes.
Which is March 27th from 7 to 8:30. If you have not heard him, and I'm not going to try and pronounce his name because I can't, he's fantastic. He's all data-driven about crash analysis and just traffic safety, and it's pretty informative. He was here last year, I believe, and we try and get him in here every few years for law enforcement, just to update us on the latest trends with driving issues. And then I have some info. Do you want me to talk about that now, about the crash from this morning? Or you want me to wait?
No, now's a good time.
Okay, I'm just going to read verbatim because I had heard about it, but I didn't know all the details. So there's a gentleman traveling north on 99 in the left lane, so the fast lane. Car ahead of him was stopping quickly, so he moved over to the right lane to avoid hitting that car. But unfortunately, the right lane has already stopped. So it ended up in a rear-ending chain reaction crash, which the driver was cited for. So, as he said, long story short, driver was going too fast, following too close, and made an unsafe lane change, and rear-ended another vehicle, causing multiple.
And that's that intersection that we talked about with regard speed and.
Speed on green, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's gonna be the whole Meineke, or not Meineke, Elward, Sunset, yeah, or the high school especially.
Yeah.
So,
All right, the last thing that was down here that maybe you don't know about, did the reappointments of us get done? Okay, all right, so the 5 of us that are staying are staying. It's beneficial.
They accepted us.
Yeah.
It was tough. We had a long conversation about it.
Yeah.
Especially about you, Rich. You were on top of it.
I'm glad that it happened before Keith got in too, probably. All right, anything else for Captain Hanlon?
Yeah, what happened at Officer Wedding?
Well, she had an injury that she sustained that I think she elected to not pursue her career any further. Went back, she was in another part of law enforcement that
Probation?
I think it was parole and probation, so it was going to better fit her for that instead of continuing to aggravate the injury.
Okay. All right. Citizen comment. Do we have anybody sign up? Anybody interested? There's 4 more bodies here tonight.
I know.
Sure. What's going to happen with it? Are you going to replace the 2 high school students in
Oh,
those positions?
I do need to talk about that. That was on my list if you weren't going to say. So next week, we've had out notice that we had positions to fill. And we're conducting interviews, Counselor Young and myself and the chief. Next Wednesday, we have a slate of 4 that we're interviewing.
I didn't remember high school, though, do you know that?
No, all I have is names, so
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah. And we'll see how that goes, and we have 4 positions to fill, and if we're always, as I told Cameron, you can always submit applications for boards and commissions to the city through that process, and we'll continue to look as we have change and turnover and stuff like that, so. There's still that opportunity. I know you guys are leaving, or everybody's talking about getting out of here, so. But like I said earlier, we really appreciate it. their insight as you heard tonight.
Can I ask, what are you two doing? You're graduating, so what's your plans? I'm not sure if we talked about this yet, did we? We did?
You may not
Never
get
mind.
here,
He'll
Rick,
fill
but go
me.
ahead.
He'll fill
All right,
me.
Cameron, go ahead and say where you're going and what you're gonna do.
I am going to OSU and I'm gonna study business management and minor in real estate.
And you're graduating in June. Okay.
Yeah, I decided not to graduate early just because our school offers so many dual credit classes, so I'm getting all this college credit for free. So a lot of my friends are graduating early and going to PCC, but then they have to pay for the classes, so just kind of thought that
That's what
was
she's,
through.
business major.
My parents, yeah.
All right, Taylor.
I'm going to the University of Portland, and I'm going to be studying mechanical engineering and minoring in German. So there's really great master's programs over in Germany for mechanical engineering and mechatronics, so I'm really interested in that. So preparing for that and hope to participate in the study abroad program in Austria as well. So
I know, I definitely want to study abroad too.
Sweet. All right, any other citizen comment?
I'm Megan Morton, I'm one of your interviewees next Wednesday.
That's what I figured out earlier. All right, cool. Anything else? Again, thank you for Ed, Cameron, Taylor, and Amy. I'm gonna miss Amy the most.
So I
So.
sent him all the harassment.
Exactly.
It's not too late for her to change her mind.
Yeah,
You're
it is.
interviewing
Yeah,
next
it is.
week.
And
I didn't
Diane's
really
vice chair next month.
He tried to move me up this time. I was like, no, I like to be over here.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
We're adjourned. I'm not even gonna ask a question.
Yeah, don't ask any questions.
All right.